Hello, selectors, and welcome to the Life Burst podcast. I'm here, and we're gonna talk about the competitive side of Wixoss, which we actually are gonna talk about the competitive side of Wixoss this time.
Hi, I'm here too.
And who are you?
Hi, I'm Tiffany. What's your name?
Oh, I'm Andrew.
Oh, good.
Nice to meet you.
How many episodes have we done?
16. This is 16.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah,
I made
is
the thumbnail
crazy.
literally. I updated our thumbnail design. It's slightly more retro now. I don't know.
Why?
Slightly more streamlined, I guess.
Okay.
I wanted more room because I started doing, like, when we first made our thumbnails, I was just trying to mass produce them, and now I'm, like, trying to put more fun thumbnails up just because I think it's fun. Mm-hmm. So I wanted more space in our thumbnail.
Let us know what you guys think of the thumbnails down below. If you want to click on them, give this a thumbs up. If you don't want to click on them, tell us why in the comments.
If you don't want to click on them, I guess you're not listening to us, so...
How did you even get here? Anyways, what are we talking about today?
Today we are going to be talking about the Metagame.
Meta update.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because we got some really good feedback from our first one. People really seem to like it.
Is this our meta forecast or we're just chatting
Both.
about it? Oh,
It's both.
Meta update and forecast.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the 0-2 meta because it's definitely established now, right?
Oh yeah,
Like,
I would say so.
the loot between the loot card tournaments, local stuff that we've been getting,
and the recent ceremony.
and the ceremony, we know what's going on in set 2. Mm-hmm. But set 2 is coming to a close literally at the end of this week. So take this as
at the end of this week?
At the end
it
of,
would be at the end of this week.
Yeah, because now it's Sunday when this video uploads. And
So
it'll be
next
the end.
week.
It'll be the 20th.
20.
Which is like 7 days from now.
What?
Yeah.
It's so fast. I feel like we just opened our box.
I know. It's crazy. But set 2 is going and gone, so we can call this meta update a sunset show. But it's a nice, right? The sunset show. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you later, bang.
Akino bye-bye to set 2.
Love it. We loved it. DJ loved it. And what's the last one that was also introduced?
You were a ray of sunshine.
Yeah. We're going to do a ray of sunshine coming up. There we go.
Yeah, welcome to our video jockey wolf on our Sorry, I couldn't even finish it.
Wait, Madoka. How do we fit Madoka in there?
Madoka! You just say it at the end. Madoka, Harana, Tamago,
No, we're good.
I don't know.
Hey, before we go full into it, though, I want to start with something a little bit different, which is a question of the podcast. I want to comment below immediately with your answer to this question while you're listening to us talk.
Right now.
Set 2 is about to close. What was your favorite deck that you played in set 2?
Ooh.
We want to know.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
have
do
to be
wanna
good.
know.
We just want to know what your favorite one was.
Yeah, just what was your favorite?
Yeah. What was your favorite?
What was my favorite of set 2?
Uh-huh. Mine was Bang. The Bang Dream Team experience that I did.
That one was fun. I actually liked Love It, to be honest.
All right.
I really liked Love It.
So we're going to talk about set 2, what it was, what it did, what this last week is going to look like. But it's important to know what set 2 is, so that way when we look at set 3 and forecast, it'll matter. I've got a feeling set 3 is going to look a lot like set 2's meta in the ceremony coming up.
I got a feeling.
Yeah, because...
that set 3's gonna look like set 2.
I got a feeling if you didn't order your cards already for the ceremony, it's not going to happen.
It's not gonna
come in time because it's 8 days.
Yeah, watch out, guys.
And
it's gonna
shipping
be a fast
is 12 to 15 business days
turnaround. Ooh.
in most places. So good luck getting your cards.
And your locals probably still aren't selling singles, which is a shame.
Yeah, that's true. So I've got a feeling that you're going to see a lot of set 2's influence on set 3's meta for at least the ceremony. And then I think it'll take a life of its own. But let's talk about set 2. All right. So set 2 brought some new decks into the format. Brought in a DJ Love It deck, which was aggressive. Mm-hmm. We also saw that in the ceremony there was no top 64 representation from Love It, other than, I think, 1 or 2 decks. And out of those 2 decks, none of them were black or were red green. So there was thoughts that there might be this Terra Beast version of DJ Love It, and it did not exist in the slightest. It is very clear that is not the route you want to go. You basically just want to be a more aggressive Lion, which I think you've seen too as well on your side.
Yeah, I would say so.
We saw Akino come and do absolutely nothing.
Sorry for all you Akino stans,
Yeah.
she just doesn't seem very competitive, although I would understand why people would like to play her.
Yeah, there was some copies that made into top 64 and absolutely no copies made into top 16.
Yes.
And I think that's, I'm gonna get up on my high horse a little bit here on my Wixoss high horse, otherwise known as, you can call me, a card jockey. Ba-doom-tsh.
Where's my guard?
Let's go put away now. Our meta predictions were pretty much on point. We before we went into the ceremony, you and I sat down and aside from deciding on how much a deck wins versus another deck, we also decided on what we thought the percentage would be in the next meta, and they were all fairly accurate numbers, which some
Which
people
was
were
a little surprising. We got pretty close, although there were some surprises.
There was a lot of people who were like, "Oh no, I didn't see Musica Madoka coming to be a fair amount of the meta," and I was like, "I did." Like that was in our thing, is that we tested against Hirana a ton, Card Jockey a half a ton, and then the leftover testing that we did was Madoka Musica, because we were like, these are the other things that could show up. And so, yeah, it ended up being that 0-2 meta. The biggest impact that it gave was Bang and Madoka. And Madoka, hell yeah, it had an impact. It won the first place, right? So good for Madoka. It gave Musica some tools that it needed to win against Hirana. But realistically, if we were going to say what the meta was in 0-0, the meta in 0-0 was have the best stats, the best stat lines, the most efficient Signies. If we were going to say what the meta was in 0-1, it was how aggressive can you be? And I think the meta in 0-2 was how aggressive can you be and also back it with disruption. And if you look at the best performing decks, Musica, Card Jockey, Hirana, and Madoka, they all do that. They're all aggressive to an extent. Some are more aggressive than others. But, getting Lancer twice in a game is pretty aggressive.
It is pretty good.
They backed it up with their stuff with some amount of disruption. Both of them, all of them really backed with some amount of discard.
I mean, how else would you win the game?
Yeah.
Really. So.
Remember,
you guys, you're always going to need that win condition, because you can't win the game without destroying Life Cloth. That's just how it works.
And you might think, well, where's the disruption in Card Jockey, right? It's in No Limit, it exists in Ray, right? And Go to the Top. Because it's discarding and enter burning. Well, where does it exist in Card Jockey aside from Love It, who has some stuff? And the answer is it's projection map, PJ map.
Yeah, with taxing the guard. That's, yeah.
Turns out taxing guards, really good.
Well, especially if you have two projection maps on the field. That's just rude.
Yeah, I mean, you can be like, all right, you can deal with one of them, but you're not going to deal with the second one. And you've got Madoka Clap. That's cute. That's not going to help you stop my 3 punches to the face.
Also, if you guys don't know which card we're referencing PRJ-map. It's projection map. Is what that is.
So yeah, I would say we're now evolving to a metagame where you can't just simply beat face. You need to think about how and what you're doing, what your game plan is, right? Even for anyone who's saying, well, No Limit's an easy deck and is mindless, you're wrong. The answer
we've said this time and time again. Aggro has its own strategy, and it's not always a turn-by-turn beat face.
And it's evolved, right? Like for example, the best performing, if I remember correctly, the best performing No Limit deck in in the ceremony was a no-limit deck that included 4 copies of Hijikata. Mm-hmm. And you'd be like, why? And
what is that blue doing in there? Hello?
Yeah, how does this work? And then you recognize, oh, Hirana has a ton of effects that draw and discard, which turn on Hijikata. And then that last bit of discard added with Ray's discard is enough disruption to basically just keep the opponent from playing a good game of Wixoss for long enough for you to win. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a game plan. And it's not a stupid game plan either.
Yep. That's what I was saying. We did our best to predict what it would look like, but there's always some surprises because variety is the spice of Wixoss. Keep it up, guys. Love to see that.
Yeah, I was generally surprised when I saw Hijikata, and you know what?
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, after I saw that tech, I was like, ooh, that's actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's the best tech, but it was good tech for sure.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, I didn't think about doing that. Right? I was so fixated on Ray discarding and go to the top, enter burning, that I didn't think of Hijikata as an option. Mm-hmm. But it is, and what's funny is Hijikata is actually a pretty good option against Madoka too, because aside from stripping Madoka's hands, when they make you discard cards, it actually gets the buff on your turn or on their turn, so it becomes a better wall.
Yeah. Well, not to mention if you're running Xenocluster, it helps as well.
Sure, and that's another thing that we should talk about is Xenocluster, right?
We were expecting there to be a lot more instances of Xenocluster in this previous ceremony than we actually saw.
It's true.
And I'm not exactly sure why that is, other than the fact that people were just not as familiar with it. But it would have done very well against decks like Madoka.
And Hirana.
And Hirana when they're with the go to the top, with the Ray that discards, with the Hijikatas.
I think overwhelmingly the reason why we didn't see as much Xenocluster is because 40% of that tournament was no limit. Mm-hmm. And they were running go to the top as their second piece.
Yeah, honestly, that does seem like the best bet for just for no limit in general, because it's such a great, it just really allows the deck to go that 1 to 2 step further beyond their turn 3, turn 4. Even though it's a little bit more expensive, but at that time you might be flooding anyways towards the later half of the game. And
I do not know whether Xenocluster, I'm going to be honest with you, I do not know if Xenocluster is either A, underplayed, or B, the Japanese meta does different stuff than American metas do, and we value Xenocluster less. I do not know. My personal thought is, if you are playing a deck that needs a very concrete plan B, right? If we're saying you're playing Card Jockey and your plan B is Silent Assassin, which is a good plan B. Mm-hmm. If you are Madoka and you're playing Chime, so that way you can turn on Hijikatas, that's your plan B. Mm-hmm. Or you are No Limit and your plan B is go to the top so you can enter burn and find another removal spell. Or if you are Tamago and you're doing freeze stuff and your plan B is Great Reversal to open up lanes with freeze, then I do think that you don't play Xenocluster. But if you do not have a solidified plan B, you're playing maybe Madoka or Musica and you're like, I got an extra slot here. Mm-hmm. You probably should be playing Xenocluster.
Yeah, it's really not a bad backup plan.
Yeah.
If you just don't know what that 12th spot's going to be.
Yeah. 30% is the amount of people who played, 1/3 is the amount of people who played Xenocluster. Mm-hmm. And 1/3 of the decks that made top 16 also played Xenocluster. So it's a stat line.
Yeah, the data shows that it's not the worst option for you if that's something you want to go with. There are other options.
Probably be 50-50, but
yeah, I mean there are other options that we had tested in the past. Like when we were running the Love It deck, we were considering something like Silent Assassin for that other spot outside of Endless Punchline.
Yeah, we made a mistake by not including it, I think.
I agree. Yeah. Silent Assassin actually works very well for that deck. There's a reason why Love It's the center
I know.
I
got talked
card.
out of the build that I was really thinking about running for your Card Jockey, and I regret it because I look at the top performing card jockey, and it was almost identical to what I put together.
Dang.
I know. I feel bad about it. It's just like, that's
Just
one of those
one more
things, like,
lesson
I
to
gotta
trust your gut.
myself, yeah.
So what do you expect to see? What's our forecast look like? You know, we've got another ceremony coming up. We've got a set coming out 8 days before.
Yeah. So from all the trends that I can see based off of stuff from Hellfire's data reports, which are fantastic.
They're
if you guys
very
haven't
good.
looked at Hellfire's, I think it's like
Thorough.
TCG Pit, I believe his website is. I'll put it in the description below. He's a great guy. He's also the commentator for the ceremony. He does a pretty good breakdown of stuff. It's very stat based, but I think if we're going to TDLR it, right? It's that we are moving from a aggressive format that needs to be backed with some amount of disruption from your opponent to a more balanced format of a rock paper scissors-esque thing. And you often see this in card game formats that end up starting to have a larger card pool. So almost always eternal formats in Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, this kinds of things turn into this type of thing, right? When Magic the Gathering, for example, has standard and is only a more shallow pool all the time, it ends up being 1 or 2 decks that are dominating. Not too dissimilar to what we saw in set 1 and set 2. But in set 3, there is so much more defensive options being put into it, right? We've got green cards that stop basically all Signy damage for a life burst. We have a white folklore, right? We have gigantic white walls that are like the no, you do not attack now kind of thing. We have blue getting its first good life bursts really at level 1, so it doesn't necessarily speed blue up, but it gives it more defensive nature. And then generally speaking, those, and we get red, we get some aggression tools too. Like red gets a Eternal Influence, a spell that basically is just a good removal spell staple, and black gets a good removal spell staple from here on, though it doesn't really need it because it has so many level 3s with removal on it. That we end up in a rock paper scissors. And Tiffany, you and I were talking today at the Waffle House, the great Southern restaurant.
Yeah. We were talking at Waffle House.
About
not sponsored.
Although they can sponsor me, I'm fine with that. I don't know if I'd have great things to say about them.
They're 24 hours most times, and they serve all day breakfast, and honestly, that's all I need to know. Anyways, what were we talking about?
We were trying to identify what is the rock, paper, scissors, and a lot of people have said, well, it's like aggro, mid-range, and control are the rock,
control
paper, scissors,
tempo,
right?
yeah.
And the answer to that is, I actually don't think that's completely accurate.
Not for Wixoss, at least.
and then we've heard people say, well, you've got the hyper-aggressive decks, and then the less aggressive decks, and then the really defensive decks. And I think the answer to that is, I don't think calling it by speed is doing it justice either. What I really think is you should be lumping decks into aggressive decks, and then also saying damage prevention decks, which, yes, generally speaking, want to go long game, but that's not their end goal. And redundant lane opening decks. It's a strange way of saying it. But let me just go ahead and say which decks are these, and then we can talk about the common things between them, right? So we've got hyper-aggressive decks. Tiffany, what are the hyper-aggressive decks?
Harana and Lion.
Yeah, pretty easily, right? You could throw Love It in there, I guess. You could actually throw probably Sandbaka in there if you really want to. It's just a plethora of removal.
Yeah.
And
that's all you need to know, is that they run fast. Usually they peak around turn 3 to turn 4. And they are some of the shortest games. They're very, very, very aggressive. They want the game to be over.
Right. But they think the easiest way to deal with problematic things is just remove the player. Right? You kill the player, it doesn't matter what they put on the board.
Exactly.
And these incredibly aggressive decks play a lot of removal, right? And which is going to be confusing for when I say a redundant removal deck. But bear in mind, when they're playing removal, it's like one-shot removals, right? They're not being able to basically use a card over and over and over again to do removal. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to quickly end the game. That's it. And they do it super effectively. They're low to the ground.
Yeah.
The next grouping would be the damage prevention decks. And I would say Nova, Tamago, Musica, and Madoka all fall in this area. Which is strange that I'm saying Tamago and Nova in the same breath that I'm also saying Madoka and Musica, because if you recognize, in my humble opinion, Madoka and Musica are mid-range decks, and Tamago and Nova are control decks. But why am I lumping them in the same thing? If you look at their Elrig's deck setup, they really are built to just prevent damage. Madoka Clap is is just the greatest damage prevention thing in existence.
I do think that there's something to be said that there is a major difference between removal and damage prevention. Now, you would think that they're the same because they accomplish the same goal,
and sometimes
but
they are the same, right? Like, because you can attack phase timing, remove a Signy in a lane, but you're doing it defensively.
Right, exactly. So I think it's really important that people understand the difference in that, because the difference between removal and damage prevention, that is what affects the speed of your deck, and how it affects the speed of your opponent as well.
Now, granted, both of them have different win conditions, right? Tamago's win condition is discard the opponent's hand down so much that they can only ever fill 2 lanes at a time, and then you have an open lane constantly. Or freeze and do removal that way. Nova's win condition is, I'm never going to run out of card advantage, you are. Right? And yeah, warning to anyone who's taking Nova to the ceremony, you better play fast.
Yeah, it's going to be a long game.
Yeah. Like I thought Tamago took long in all the testing with Madoka, or with Nova. Nova takes longer.
Yeah, which is really shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, be quick.
Yeah. And remind your opponent to be quick as well.
Yes.
Is an important part. Then Madoka and Musica are more mid-range in the fact that their win condition often is Salvage the Future and Lancers. And that means they're more aggressive, but they're still winning the game by changing the combat math. That's their goal. They're saying, by the sheer amount of 2-for-1 damage prevention I'm doing with you, right? Like Madoka and Musica both have Elrigs that can stop 2 or more Signy attacks. Same thing with Tamago. Bang Da Capo does that. Then you realize their goal is the same game plan. How they're winning is different, but their general game play is going to be the same. And these guys beat up the aggro decks because they sit there and go, yeah, you can aggro all you'd like, but it's not going to work. You're just going to run into a brick wall. Then you're going to be out of cards, and then I am going to win with my late game win conditions, whatever they may be. And then you have the removal redundant decks, right? And these are Bang in all of its forms, its Dream Teams or its Uchu form. And Ray, the new Ray that's coming out. And why I call them redundant is because they have damage pre-built into their card. So with Bang, you know, you get Freelancer all the time. And I don't know if you guys know this, Freelancer is pretty good.
Hey, Freelancer.
Right.
But also, the other good thing about Bang's ability is that there's no reason to wait on it. We call it Kirbying. Once you suck up your other Larigs, you have that for the rest of the game until you inevitably win. And
what does Ray do? New Ray.
Oh my god, I have to rethink this now. Hold on. I have her in front of me really quick. I'm a visual person.
I get it.
I need to read.
So new, just read it verbatim.
Okay, so its team auto ability is, at the beginning of your attack phase, if you have drawn 2 or more cards by effects this turn, you may pay 1 blue, 1 anything. If you do, put target level 2 or less Signy on the bottom of its owner's deck.
Right.
So that is how you would remove something.
Correct. And you can do it every turn.
And you can do it every turn if you have the enter for it.
And you might think, well, level 2 or less. What if they have level 3s? Well, the limit is 8. 8 take away 3.
You can still take away 1.
Yeah, take away 3 means that there's a limit of 2 left. So that third slot needs to be a level 2 or less. So you'll always have a target for it. What we're saying here is that the other decks that end up walling, what they're so successful about is they're walling out all of the aggression. The problem is when you try to wall out Bang or Ray, is they say, yeah, I don't care if I only get 1 damage a turn. I'm still getting a damage a turn.
Yeah.
And you will lose the long game because of that.
It ends up being a game of attrition and who has the bigger blockers.
Right.
But as long as you can always open up at least 1 lane, and they're going to run out of guards eventually.
Right. You and I tested Bang vs. Musica literally yesterday. And it ended up being this thing where we had to count how much life cloth we had, how much we were going to lose, and maximize the fact that I went from 4 to 3, and then you went from 5 to
2.
4.
Yeah.
And then I went from, and then I took you down to 0, but not death. And then you took me down to 0 and not death. And then in this arduous long game, I just eventually lost. And the reason is because I have to use effects to lane clutter and to do removal, and I need to spend enter on it and stuff. And Bang just needs to exist for X amount of turns, and then they'll get the win. And that's what I mean. So even though Bang and Ray, neither one of them are quote unquote long deck cards in terms of speed, right? They can go the long game, and they don't mind fighting the long game because they'll win out due to basically free effects or redundant effects.
Yeah. And especially in the longer game, because you don't necessarily have, like, grows or pieces, like, heavier entered pieces. You're really just paying for, like, effects now, which tend to be cheaper on the card side. You're going to end up getting a lot of enter that you can spend that on.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, like with Tamago, right, or Madoka's probably a better example. When Madoka runs out of steam, like, Madoka's not doing much. Like, it's not... Okay, it can enter charge, I guess, like sometimes, or maybe draw a card sometimes. Cool, that's not actually winning you the game. Whereas Bang's Freelancer is a damage a turn. And so...
Such a shame you can't win off of that. I still don't agree with that, personally.
But yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that inevitably they win with it.
Yeah.
Ray will let you do it more at a cost, but will actually secure you the win.
Yes.
So... that is how these 3 rock paper scissors meta operates, and we're seeing start to take form. I think it's shown that that's sort of what happens in Japan, and I would be surprised to see that not happen in America as well, just because that also happens in pretty much all card games. So the real question is, what are the good decks? I think we've just named all of the good decks.
Or at least in our opinion.
Yeah, it's your hyper aggressive decks.
We're just looking at patterns, really.
Sure, your good hyper aggressive decks are
Harana and Lion currently.
Yeah. What's your good redundant removal decks?
Are we talking about currently or what we think in the future?
Think in the future.
Well, we just said Ray and Bang.
Correct, and we think that what are the good damage prevention decks?
That would be Madoka and Musica. Really, Madoka and Musica, I would say. And Nova, yeah, that's right.
I use Tamago as an example, and I would not say it's a good
deck.
We
wouldn't put that on our, like, optimal rock, paper, scissors list.
Yeah, it's like tier 2.
Not to be confused with Akino rock and paper.
Yeah, there's no Akino scissors yet, though, which is strange.
I know.
We'll get there.
Yeah. I really wish that there was.
There's Akino clap now.
Oh.
But it doesn't do Madoka's clap effect, so it's not as good.
Bummer.
So these are the tenets, and I for what's worth, these are the tenets in Japan in like a year ahead of now too. Is you still end up having decks that are the damage prevention decks that are the hyper aggro decks, and then decks that beat the damage walling up ones. Literally, Bang is doing that right now as a dream team. The Bang that is in our set 2, right? It wasn't so great in set 2. Apparently, it's very good right now in set 9.
Ooh.
It got better. Because, again, Freelancer does that.
That is true. Yeah, that is something that you always want to keep in mind. But especially with how fast they're rolling out the new sets in the English versions, like, we're literally getting a new set, like, every month through, I think it's, like, August.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's pretty close. Yeah.
It's really close. So,
I think they're every 2 months, but yeah.
It's worth it to look ahead. But at the same time, it's important to just, plan for each upcoming ceremony.
There's more Madoka. Sorry, there's more Musica and Bang being used in America than there was in Japan. So they're not a 1-for-1 translation to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's less as to what is the best decks. Instead, you just identify these are the best decks in these 3 categories,
mm-hmm.
right? And then you got to say, what are the percentages that those categories are going to be used, right? Because, for example, a Musica deck is good against No Limit.
Mm-hmm.
It's also good against Card Jockey.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one's really faulting you if you use a Musica, a Madoka, or a Nova deck. They all do the same idea, which is damage prevent until you can win.
Yeah, with just a little bit of different flavor.
Yeah, so realistically, the real question now is what percentage is rock, what percentage is paper, and what percentage of the meta is scissors.
Yeah, and I do think it would be helpful to look back on, like you said earlier in the podcast, the set 3 meta is going to be heavily influenced by set 2. And especially because of shipping times compared to when the ceremony is and when the set actually comes out. So that is important to take into account.
Right, and I think it's pretty easy to say right now that, what do you want? You want rock, paper, or scissors to be representative of hyper aggro?
Let's do scissors, because they're slicing through the field.
Slicing and dicing, yeah. I like that. So scissors, right?
Scissors
hyper aggro.
Would be...
Scissors aggro is probably going to be the heavy one. If I was going to make a guess, it would be something like 40%, 20%, 20%.
40%.
40% being hyper aggro.
Oh, okay. 20% and 20. That's only 80%.
Is it?
Yes.
Clearly I'm good at math, right? 25%, 25%.
That's 90.
Great. 30%, 30%.
There you go.
You crawled up there.
We made it.
Can you tell I went to art school?
Don't even play like that. You're so good with numbers.
It's true.
Anyways,
I don't have a spreadsheet in front of me, guys.
Yeah, I do think that would be accurate with, like, maybe slight fluctuations between paper and rock if we're going to be doing that. But I would say that that hyper aggro is probably going to stay at a solid 40%.
I think that'll be the 40%.
Yeah.
Also, partially influenced by, you got to remember bias is important too, right? And a lot of people play Wixoss as their second card game, so they might be trying to do something that they think is a little mentally easier, and so they'll play aggro, which means that they'll play Card Jockey or Hirana at a higher level, I think.
It's also, comparatively to the other decks, it's cheaper. So if you are playing multiple card games, chances are Wixoss is not going to be your monetary priority.
Yeah.
So
the upgrade to Hirana from set 2 to set 3 is like
it's minimal.
$8.
Yeah, it's very minimal. It's pretty affordable.
Yeah.
Compared to some of the other decks where you might have to invest a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that would be those are our picks for scissors.
Right.
So scissors beats paper.
Right. Paper is
the Ray and Bang.
Yeah, sure. Ray and Bang. And I think you'll see cumulatively they'll probably make up somewhere around 30-ish to
probably 25 to 30%.
20 to 30% of the meta. And then I think you'll see a slight amount more of these damage prevention control decks, or whatever you want to call them, in Nova, Musica, Madoka. Partially because Madoka did well in the last tournament, and partially because and I don't mean this to sound negative, there's a high number of people who play card games that also feel like they want to be intelligent, and they think that damage prevention-esque control decks are the intelligent choice. And that's just some psychology for the way that American metas play.
Yeah. I mean, feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comment section down below, what you think about that. But I think that when you're taking in information across not just Wixoss, but like multiple TCGs or just like, you know, some sort of resource management strategy games, that does seem to be the way that a lot of players tend to skew.
You just gotta look at your demographic. I don't mean anything negative by it. These people are great.
Yeah, we're just making observations.
Just have noticed that there's less people that want to play. There's less people that want to play halfback and more people that want to play either forward or goalie. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
And so I think...
those are our paper choices. And then we've got... Yeah, we already said that our rock choices would be the Madoka, the Nova, the Musica kind of decks.
I think you'll see people lean towards Madoka since it took first place.
Yeah, which wouldn't be an incorrect choice. You know, if it took first place, that's pretty good.
I will say this, and this is anecdotal evidence. The price for Langling type Dre has gone up from the first ceremony to the second ceremony.
Ooh.
Where Langling is now more expensive than Osaga Getsune.
Ooh.
And it was not original.
No.
It was Osa Getsune and Arcwane were the most expensive, and now they're not as expensive as that one is. And it's strange, I will say this, it's strange that a team Signy, aka something that can only be used in one or two different decks, is currently one of the most costly Signy.
Yeah, it does kind of tell you something about where people are thinking to throw their money.
Yeah, where they're buying things, right now.
That's kind of why we say we like doing these meta updates and forecasts, because it really is like kind of tracking the stock market, especially if you're buying your cards online through something like TCG Player where you can see the trends. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're shopping around and you're not really sure which way you want to go. You can kind of track the popular trends that way too. Yeah,
and it's not a ton of evidence here on this, but Tiffany and I win promos from our events that we place in.
Yeah, we go to various locals.
Yeah, and we do that for our testing so that we can get you guys more information and whatnot. We try out a lot of different things. But one of the things that we do is we sell our promos, mostly so we can buy more cards to test.
Yeah, that really is how we're just recycling.
and
really.
And so yeah, you can theoretically find me on TCG Player. And what's funny about that is where we actually have had listeners who specifically buy our cards because they're like, we listen to you and we're glad to buy these off of you, which is great and cool and fun.
Yeah, really, that just goes back into us, like you said, buying cards to test for you guys and letting you know what we think.
And so we ended up we sell the promos and I can tell you that there is very little musicas left in our promos that we have. So those ones kind of flew off the shelves.
Yeah, it is kind of, just on like a side note, it's pretty interesting to see what promos people buy, because then you can kind of track like, oh, people are huge fans of Akino. People are huge fans of, like, we've had a couple people buy like all of our OTT promos.
Yeah,
off
our
of
OTTs
us.
are out now. Like,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, granted, it's been out for a while, so
yeah,
it's
but
not
people
crazy.
are still buying it, even though Ancient Surprise isn't the most viable deck, like, at all in the format. I think you guys, if you've listened to multiple podcasts, we don't mention that deck at all, which is a crime for me.
What's funny is there was an uptick on Ancient Surprise. This is just, it must be purely incidental, or I'm just seeing like two things at the same time. When we released the lore video,
which we do recommend you guys go listen to.
There was an increase in those promos, and we sold out of them. So I don't think we can manipulate the market or anything,
No.
but it was funny to see. But yeah, so you can use, the funny thing is you can use price trends on sites like TCG Player to see what is popular, what are people trying. It is actually a legit method on trying to figure things out, right? Like when I look at, there's not a lot of data on Japan from set 1 to set 3. It's because that was when the height of the pandemic happened and a lot of lockdowns happened, right?
Yes.
So one of the ways that I found out what it was is I actually looked at the price history of the card sales on the Japanese biggest marketplace, card marketplace, their equivalent of TCG Player.
Right.
And I used that to find out, because if you go like, oh, Rose Quartz sold out, and Tobayao's sold out, and Lancelot's sold out, and Ramel sold out. These are all no limit cards. No limit must have been popular during that time.
Sneaky.
Yeah,
numbers matter.
It's stupid. Guys, it's stupid how much work I go through to try to find out all the edges that I can to bring to this podcast for you.
Yeah, but you live your life off of spreadsheets, so don't even be like, oh, I do so much work. You love it. I couldn't tear you away from your Excel if I tried.
It's true. The term people call that kind of gaming is spreadsheet gaming. I'm not joking. It's a big thing, in MMOs and stuff. When people are like, I have my build optimized and what I need, and it's all on a spreadsheet and it's telling me what I need to grind. That is a legit term.
I'm so much more metaphysical with my gaming. I'm like, this feels good. I like playing this. This is fun. Yeah, but also, if I don't win with this, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, because
it's so ridiculous.
You wreck me, and I'm always like, oh, it was such a good play. You planned it out so well. This and this and this, and now I don't have the enter, and I have 2 less cards, and
I was like, I didn't even think about it. It just seemed like a good thing to do.
I mean, you did. You do think about it. You just take it in. You're like, this feels like the right move.
Yeah.
And then you pounce.
Rawr. MC Lion XD.
But speaking of spreadsheets, something that we're doing right now, just to keep you guys in the loop, for getting ready for our ceremony, is we did this last time too, is I have a spreadsheet where I have literally every deck in existence that could be existing right now. And I give it, I rate its matchup against every other deck in existence as well. So that way I have a complete spread, and the end result is I can see how well this deck performs against a variety of other decks, right? And this is what we use from our gauntlet testing. So we have live actual applications that we can see.
Yeah, it's a little limited based off of, we're taking these numbers based off of our experience at the locals, our experience playing together, and we're just 2 people.
And
but
also
we
what you guys
do
say.
Try and what you guys say, but we do try and circle through all of the decks.
Yeah, some information from Hellfire for sure. But then also you guys comment and tell us things, right? The whole, for example, the whole tech with Umir Clear that was a trend for a while was because of a comment on the video.
Yeah. You say it, we play it.
Yeah. So we try out things that you guys suggest all the time. And one of the fun things about that is it gives you basically an overall, if Wixoss was truly diverse and you always went against a new deck every round, how well would this deck perform? And then what we do is, much like weighted grades are a nightmare when you're trying to figure out what your GPA is in college, right? We weight them as well as being like, all right, Hirana, no limit, is 40% of the meta or something, whatever it is, and we put that down as a weight, right?
Yeah. And
then that gives us a score for that deck against all of the weighted things up to 100% of what is in the meta. What does this deck score? And that's how we come to a decision as to, all right, these are the best decks in the meta because they are the top performing. They perform the best over long terms and over many matches.
Yeah, and the last parameter we always use when deciding our decks is what do we want to play just because we want to.
Right.
And just using those numbers to be like, all right, if we're picking something that's in the lower percentile, then we know going into the ceremony it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle. But if you want to play it, you want to play it.
And that is.
But it's good to have an informed decision on what deck you want to be bringing into the ceremony, which is why we make podcasts like this for you guys.
Right, and that's something that I think a lot of card players who give advice actually do not do justice to, is the fact that, and it's funny because I actually saw this happen in Magic the Gathering when Modern was really at its peak. A lot of pros were really bad at Modern, and Modern was ruled by people who play one deck all the time and were insanely good at it. And the reason why that existed was because pros, generally speaking, pick whatever the best deck is. And the problem is with more of an internal card pool and a wider variety of decks, picking whatever's the best deck, there's not usually one specific deck that rules them all. Now,
one deck to rule them all.
Yeah, that may not be the case in future Wixoss, and we'll get that when we get to set 4. But for now, it is true. And what's interesting is a lot of times these card game pros underappreciate the fact that they are versatile. And it takes many years of playing a variety of card games to become versatile and being like, I can pick up any deck and I can play it well.
Yeah.
Right? I have only recently got that after many years of playing limited Magic the Gathering and just drafting any deck that was available to me. It takes a long time to retrain your brain to do that. Otherwise, you have natural inclinations to aggression, natural inclinations to defensive measures, natural inclinations to trying to figure out how to bend rules in your favor. Things, that other decks might be able to do.
And that's something I'm still learning as a player. I've said this time and time again. Wixoss is really the only card game that I've really gotten into and really seriously played and have been playing regularly and have seen any sort of competitive success in. And I'm still learning those things because, we've really only been playing since November of 2021, which was 6-7 months ago.
Yeah, about half a
so
year.
Not even a year. So, and that does take, time, patience, and discipline to be able to train your brain to do.
Totally. So. And I think that when we're talking about the best decks in the format, what the percentages are probably of the meta, et cetera, you should recognize that you should take everything that we just said with a grain of salt. It's good to know. Mm-hmm. But if you are but I'm really good at the mini game that exists in Card Jockey, I do not care that it's not the best white deck in existence after this, which that is an arguable statement that I made. It probably still is. Maybe one of the best white decks you can play.
Sure.
And you might be like, well, maybe I need to turn into a Hirana main because I still want to play white red, but it's the better deck. The answer is no. If you are better at playing Card Jockey and you know that your inclination is towards aggro, yeah, you could switch over to Hirana, but you also have so much valuable knowledge and experience locked away with that one deck.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is good. And that's why I just said that one of our most valuable and last parameters that we take into account is what we actually want to play, what we enjoy playing, what we just want to bring to the ceremony, anything like that. That's what we make our last decision on. And if you really enjoy playing a deck, whether or not you think it's viable or optimal or whatever, you will be a better player for it.
Yeah.
Because you're playing to your strengths. Just because a deck is quote unquote the best in the format, that doesn't make you the best player.
Right.
Which I know is a hot take, and I'm not trying to be offensive.
This is why for example, the Bang Dream teams did actually pretty okay in the ceremony, which is out of nowhere.
The Ancient Surprise decks did fine too.
Well, specifically the Bang Dream teams, right? Because there was something 7 Bang Dream teams that was in there, and I think 6 qualified for top 64, which is a huge conversion rate.
Yeah, that's a high batting average.
And this is completely unprecedented in the Japanese meta. Bang is not literally. It is now. Bang is just starting to become good in the Japanese meta right now, which means that there's something to say that in the future it becomes good. Therefore, it might have just been overlooked in the past, and we're not overlooking it here in America. But there is something to be said for there was people who were adamant that was their favorite deck. They learned how to play it. They knew the meta
and
really
they did
well because of it, and they did well.
Yeah.
And when people played against something they didn't know how to play against, they just lost to it pretty quickly. That was like the trick with Umir clears, that no one knew if you see an Umir on the other side of the battlefield, just don't attack with your Elrig on turn 2. Your win rate goes up by like 20% if you do that.
Or if you're card jockey, you just don't worry about it.
Yeah, if you're card jockey, you don't care at all.
Yeah, card jockey doesn't care. But and that's kind of, you know, at the end of all of this, take our numbers, make an informed decision, but as always, play what brings you joy. You know, and learn whatever deck it is, you learn it frontwards, backwards, sideways, up, down, whatever, and you become the best player that you can be with that deck. And it will take you farther than just picking whatever's popular. Unless you're a new player. That's, you know, it's not a bad choice either.
And I will say that, like, to defend, you know, picking whatever's the best deck and playing with it, right? It does take a certain type of player to do that. And it takes skill to do that, a certain type of skill that is not common. Something that I think you said when we talked about what do we want out of our next ceremony, is something you mentioned, is that you want to be a wider variety player.
Yeah, I just want to, like, level up my skills, really. Because I've noticed that there were some major pitfalls that I ran into the ceremony, and a lot of them had nothing to do with what my opponent did. A lot of them had to do with my understanding of what decisions I should have been making at the time, certain things I need to be taken into account, and just generally my skill level as a card player. So personally, my goal for this upcoming ceremony is just to rank up. Like, just get a better rank than I did last time. That's it. That's my only goal.
But you're also going to start playing a more variety of decks, so that way you can just be like, no, I'm comfortable playing mid-range now, right? Like, that's even just a good thing.
I'll be branching out for sure.
Instead of being like, I'm just an aggro player, you can be like, no, I'm an aggro and a mid-range player right now. And if you were to do just steps like that, right? Okay, now I'm going to try to do some control decks. Now I'm going to try to do some tempo decks. I'm really learning this one deck in and out so that I can become a better player. If you do that enough, you will eventually become one of those players that can pick up any deck and just play it outright, just by knowing the basic super archetype tendencies of these decks. But if you guys just are looking to do well at the ceremony, you probably should pick whatever you're naturally inclined to play.
Yep. Yeah. I think that kind of wraps it up for our meta predictions and forecasts and whatever.
I would love to wrap this video real quick with just talking about set 2. I loved set 2. It was a lot of fun. Set 1. Set 0 was not fun.
I liked it.
Okay. You either played you played Toko, I guess even wasn't even that great at the end. It really was. You played Towel Red
or Toko
Black. And I guess there was some amount of Ange White that you could play.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it just because it's all I had at the time, but it is what solidified my interest in the game. Yeah. So I don't care that I can't really play it that much anymore. I still liked it. I enjoyed it.
I think we were lucky because there wasn't a lot of resources like the ones we have now, where people are saying, here's the things that are good. So we kind of had this honeymoon stage where no one really knew what was good, and we were just playing whatever.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I have such fond memories of that, because, you know, even when we were playing in our locals, you know, some of the rules hadn't been completely sussed out. So we would just, like, lean over to each other mid-game and be like, hey, is this the proper ruling for this? Because there weren't any judges either. So we had to, like, rely on, you know, our, like, hive mind, basically.
But there was resources, and that's the thing. It was unclear. The Discord existed back then, and you could use it to ask questions, and we didn't utilize it because we just didn't know.
It was unclear.
It was unclear. And that's why I didn't like set 0 too, because I was just like dying because there was no reason. That's the whole reason we started the podcast, was because we were just like, no one's talking about this game. I don't know what anything is. Where do I go? So this podcast was born from us just being like,
what do we do?
What do we do?
And that's another reason why we always encourage you guys to comment, because we really do want this to be a back and forth discussion with you guys. Yeah. It's not just about us.
Bill corrected me literally in my last set review and was just like, that's not how Hirana Stamp works. And I was like, you're right. That's not how Hirana Stamp works.
Keep us on the straight and narrow.
And then
what about set 1?
Set 1 was, hey, here's No Limit. That was all set 1 was.
God, you have the hottest takes.
Well, because it got no. Here's what happened. Set 1 got more and more and more refined, and I was playing Tamago, and I was like, "Yeah, I got this." Wait, maybe I didn't. Nope, Tamago's a bad deck now. Like that was my experience.
You did a little emotional roller coaster.
Meanwhile, you were playing Card Jockey, and you were like, "Card Jockey's viable. Card Jockey's really viable. Fuck yeah, Card Jockey's viable."
And you know what's funny about that whole journey is that when we were looking at what centers were going to be coming out, we were like we had just watched the anime like a month ago, and then we started rewatching it, right? And I was just like, I just really like the vibe of Card Jockey. I have no idea how that deck is going to operate, but it's going to be the deck that I'm playing. And then it turned out to be a great deck.
It was a pretty good one. Probably the second best.
Second best.
Then set 2 happened, and I actually really enjoyed set 2. Set 2 brought a level of like, it's not just aggro anymore, guys, that I really cared about, and it started opening up dynamics. Plus, I had the experience to really, I had the experience to really play Bang and really write my own rules for deck building, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that set 2 was a really great way to not only bring in new players, because now there's a little bit more of a wider pool of cards. And
it's
decks.
The spice of Wixoss.
It's the spice of Wixoss. I will never not stop saying that, because it's true. Like,
variety is the spice of Wixoss.
It's so important. Otherwise, this is so sorry for Pokemon competitive players. Otherwise, you end up getting like the equivalent of Pokemon teams that are just all legendaries in the exact same team, and it's so boring to watch and play.
You're talking about VGC.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I say, like, this is really important that those options are out there. But also it helped me to expand my idea of what playing this game could be like as a player. Because, with Card Jockey, I was like, yeah, Lion Center, why would I choose anything else? And then I played Love It. And even though I didn't end up going with Love It for the ceremony, and I believe that it's viable but not optimal, I still loved playing it. I loved it.
Yeah, we've used that one to death now.
It's too easy. So I really liked that one. And I was also very surprised at how I felt playing the Bang Dream Team as well. I was like, oh, this actually also feels very nice.
Yeah.
And it's really cool as a player to get to expand your skill horizon by just playing things that you wouldn't normally play. Because at set 1, we really had played it all. We had played all those decks to death.
Totally.
So to be able to compare and contrast the playing between the different L-rigs was super helpful and interesting and fun.
Yeah. And set 3 is going to be fun to figure things out with. Like, we've been playing our test decks that I put up the deck text for.
Please go watch those.
Yeah, I've been since refining those deck lists. I think, for example, the wolf is not good. And I don't know how to fix it other than probably playing Bang.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts on BJ Wolf is in the comments.
And Ray needs some more gas. Runs out of gas a little early. But it's fun because this is the time where we can try things out, refine them, and they're not known quantities yet. Yeah, which is cool.
It's always fun journeying into the unknown with these new decks, because you never really know how the meta is going to evolve.
Yeah.
But we'll see at the upcoming ceremony. Hope to see you guys there. Let us know if you got a spot.
It's true. I'm going to make an educated guess here and say the upcoming ceremony is going to be a weird one, and you probably shouldn't take it as gospel as to what set 3 is going to look like because of shipping and all the junk. I think
that would be tough.
The third ceremony, which is still during set 3, I believe, will be.
Oh yeah, that will be
like,
a big
all right, this
one.
This is the one.
Well, third time's a charm anyway.
I guess so.
And we don't have another set coming out before that? Is that what you just said?
I don't think so. I don't take me as gospel on it. I didn't look. But when we do get another set, it's DXM. So just play DXM at that point.
Yeah. I'm gonna have thoughts on that
think
when that happens.
I think that's gonna happen, and then what's gonna happen is you're gonna play. I honestly believe this is me talking about this is my forecast for set 04
for
meta,
me,
for Tiffany meta, is that you're going to play DXM, right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna play as X, which is the red center, and you're gonna go, oh crap, I love this, because it's just really strong Hirana. And you're going to go, oh, this is actually really good.
Well,
and then you're going to become the monster, is what I'm thinking is going to happen.
Okay.
You either live long enough to
be the hero or the monster. Yeah, whatever that saying is. With great power, what is it? Yeah, I mean, listen, I have purposefully not looked at the cards for DXM coming up because I know, well, I don't know for sure, but I suspect based off of the Japanese meta, it's going to be a lot. But we'll talk about that when that gets to be relevant. So, do you have any clothing? Do you have any clothing life
I
thoughts? Apologize for everyone listening at home.
I do have some life cloth thoughts, and they are mostly that I always hope to flip a life burst.
All right. Thank God for saving me on that one.
Saved it for you.
You saved me. All right. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.